Good morning, everybody. It is just now 10 o'clock on March 7th, 2026. It's Saturday, and yeah, 7th of March. Is that lucky number 7? So, as we see, everybody's talking about the fog of war, who did what to who, and who's bombing this, and I mean about these girls, of course. It's clear now that the United States did it. It wasn't even Israel. You would expect Israel, but I'm not mostly going to be talking about that. Mostly what I'm going to be talking about is some sort of a real geopolitical shift, and it's a terrible blow to the BRICS countries. I'm not going to get up here in front of you like there's a lot of people, and they realize that the United States and Israel are the bad guys in this. There's no doubt. But you see a lot of these headlines, a lot of the reports that or reporters, I would say, or vloggers, or everybody that is taking the moral high ground. And of course, they know that the United States and Israel are the bad guys here, and there's no doubt about that. So they put on their, thumbnails, something so that you click on it and you say, USA has lost, and all that. But I don't really like to do that. And you got to try to stay on a positive note and things like that. So trying to give you the real news, and of course nobody wants to be depressed, I guess, but it's more important to put out the real news, and you can sometimes find a silver lining within that. But as long as you know the facts, I guess that's what's most important, and then you can maneuver yourself, you as individuals, and we hope countries can maneuver themselves to protect their people and to protect their economies and do the appropriate thing. But I'm going to be talking about a lot of things, but the main thing this is probably going to be a long video, so the main thing I'm going to be talking about right now is it's a big geopolitical shift. And it was going on maybe for quite some time, but very slowly, and now it's very big. And why it's happening, I'm not quite that sure. It's all about India. India apparently is now switching over, and they're maybe aligning themselves with the United States more than anything else. And even all the experts in India, the independent experts, are all admitting this. And India, they try to say that they're neutral and that they're not aligned with anybody in any way, in any form. But even a lot of these people that are hopefully trying to be unbiased, they are saying it is very clear that India has aligned themselves with the United States and, of course, with Israel. And many people have said that they've already, for a long time, been aligned with Israel in various ways. But I guess when anything really hits the fan, they might try to stay out of things. But it looks like right now they're not. They're actually going against Iran. And I'll get into that. So I'll start off with this, and I'm going to talk about some other things. But Modi, he was just recently, obviously, 40 hours, I guess, before the strikes took effect. He was in India kissing with Benjamin Netanyahu and all that. And it was and a little bit before this, I'm saying like maybe about a year ago, I was saying, oh, that is great that Modi gets along so well with Vladimir Putin, and they're best buddies and all that sort of thing. Modi, I was thinking he gets along with everybody except for maybe Pakistan. But I don't know. And I'm not saying that he's being fake or anything like that. But the United States has got him by the short hairs, apparently. I'm not saying that he's implicated, Modi is implicated in the Epstein files, which I doubt very much. There's no indication of that, none whatsoever. But somehow, who knows? Who knows what they're using as manipulation for Modi? So, and it's apparently very much through Israel. Modi, I guess, did huge deals with Israel. And you probably can realize that a lot of that is going to very, very much benefit Israel. And it can't be otherwise. It's just like the United States. The United States makes sure that they always get the best end of the deal, no matter who they deal with. There's no doubt about that. So, and I don't know what was in these deals. I'm not really an expert on following India. And I think there are people from India that watch my program here. At least they have in the past, I remember. And I would really like to hear some input from you. And if you could tell us a lot more about what is the real thing going on in India. Look, I'm not getting that much news, and I have a lot of better things to do than searching to find everything about India and their relationship with Israel and their relationship with the U.S. I'm just taking things as it comes here. But yeah, I don't really know what's going on. But apparently, with Iran, India had tremendous deals going with Iran, and now it's all dropped. It's gone. For the 2026 budget, it's gone. It's gone. It's like all of a sudden India, who is a BRICS nation, and Iran is definitely becoming a BRICS nation. They've cut everything off with Iran. And we saw that ship, that Iranian ship that was taking part in the ceremonies, a friendship ceremony, I guess, in India. And the United States went over there and bombed it. It was completely unarmed, no ammunition whatsoever. And the United States was also invited to that. And a day or so before, they canceled it. And then as soon as Iran was leaving to go back to that Iranian ship was leaving, completely unarmed, the United States blew the thing up and killed up most all of the soldiers out of there. And of course, they didn't help to rescue any of these soldiers either. And I don't know if India did that much or not, but I think they did try, at least to a certain extent, by trying to rescue. I'm not sure. Some people say one thing and some people say another. But, over 100 Iranian soldiers died in that. There's no doubt about it. So I don't know how many they rescued. A smaller portion of them were rescued. And, as we already heard, Donald Trump has given permission to India that they can buy Russian oil, apparently for 30 days. That's what somebody was saying. I don't know exactly what it is, but at least it's not a never-ending thing. And I was thinking, and I remember people commenting, people from India on my site saying that there is no way that India is going to stop buying oil from Russia. But apparently they were, and they were cutting it off, and it was basically practically down to nothing. But I think they replaced a lot of that with oil from Iran, and now maybe that's gone. I don't know where India is going to be getting their oil after this 30 days, if the United States put this moratorium on them or not. I don't know. Are they going to be getting it from Saudi Arabia? I don't know if that if production has dropped significantly in Saudi Arabia, since it looks apparently like Israel did a false flag and they attacked this Aramco, the biggest oil hub, oil refinery, I guess, in the Middle East. So this is like some interesting stuff, and I guess a lot of the prices of oil and gas and everything are shooting up quite a bit. It is going to affect the United States somewhat, but the United States, to a large extent, is self-sufficient, and they get a lot of their energy from Canada. And now, of course, they took over Venezuela, and of course they did that. It was strategic right before this attack on Iran, because they figured it's possible, and it looks like it happened, that Iran would block the Strait of Hormuz. So, and China, for the meantime, they have built tremendous storage capacity for oil in China. So they have enough for 6 months in their storage. So that's like over 1 billion barrels. Incredible. 1 billion something. I don't know, because they were expecting this might happen, some sort of a problem here. Yeah. But of course, Japan and South Korea didn't do so. So they're actually going to be maybe they are already starting to become in a world of hurt. And I was thinking, along with this, the United States, I guess you need special oil refineries to refine the oil from Venezuela. And they have refineries. I guess it needs special equipment. And the United States has that because they were doing business with Venezuela quite a bit in the past years and things. And of course, lately it was only Chevron. But they have refineries set up in the southern part of the United States, especially like Louisiana, that can process Venezuelan oil. And it would be a master stroke if Israel, yet I don't know how well these places are bombed, or excuse me, I gave it up. are protected, but if Israel decided they wanted to bomb these things in some possible way, the United States thinking that they have their oil supply secured. I don't know how much storage capacity they have and what they have there, but that would actually get the United States to get a little bit worried, and the price of oil would go up quite a bit. I think it's already gone up quite a bit in the United States. You would think it wouldn't go up as much. Maybe it didn't go up as much, but I don't know. Europe, I'm curious as to what the prices have been looking like in Europe lately in the past 3 or 4 days. Okay, but the quiet part out loud is that this is very shocking, because it looks like India, like I said, they have started an alliance, and their alliance is with the United States, is with the West, more so than it is with the BRICS. And yeah, let's see. So economic experts in India right now, they're talking about this as well. It's not just people on the outside. So India knows this. I guess maybe there's some. It's not like in Israel where people will probably get into big trouble if they start talking about this. I don't know about the freedom of the press in Israel, because a lot of that is curtailed, as you all see. You're not allowed to show any photographs. I think it's like a prison term if you show photographs of the destruction of what is happening in Tel Aviv. And I guess it is substantial. It's probably not as bad as what Iran is experiencing from the United States and Israel in Tehran, but I guess it is substantial destruction. And Iran, I guess they could launch bigger volleys, but I think they're keeping it down. And it's already also been turned to the press. A lot of these photos, when they're showing these photos of these launches of these missiles from Iran, apparently what they did is they have these things are underground, these launchers, and you can see an area, it just looks like a lot of sand, and then all of a sudden a missile gets launched. So it's underground, and when you see the explosions, you see a lot of brown, I guess, at the bottom after the shot. So you see the white of the rocket, and then you see a lot of the brown, I guess, and that is because it is they shoot through the sand. I guess, who knows how thick that layer of sand is at the beginning, at the top, but they're shooting them through, and then they take off from there. So the United States can't see them. They cannot see where these missiles are at. And I don't know if they just have one. I don't know. It's amazing. It'd be interesting to find out. Are these like disposable launchers? They launch one time and they realize maybe they're going to get hit after that, so that's it. So Iran, they would have to have a few thousand launchers maybe. I don't know. But they seem very confident. And the United States has to take heed with that. And they were warning the United States for many months. They said, we're not the pushover that you think that we are. So Donald Trump is obviously panicking. And I'll get into some of that too. That's what he is doing. I'll give you a hint. He is doing massive, massive expansion on a military buildup. Quadrupling anyway. That's just a hint. So, like I said, the 2026 budget of India is now leaving out Iran. So it's like they're cutting it off with Iran and maybe even with Russia. I don't know. I mean, maybe it has gone down substantially. So is India abandoning the BRICS? And if they are, why? So why would India do this? And I guess the budget of 2025 had tens of billions of dollars in substantial investment in Iran, and now it's gone down to like zero. So it's, and it's absolutely like, I don't know, mind-boggling. That was even before all of this. Who knows what happened in the back rooms? So somebody from India out there, please tell me a little bit more. Somebody who is in the know, and I'm sure there might be some people that are out there. And Trump has also, I think he's met with Modi not that long ago. Ursula von der Leyen, you saw, was there. A lot of these Western leaders, and they're all hugging Modi. and all that. So I'm thinking, what is going on here? But Putin, I guess, before that was meeting with Modi. And so it's almost like India is playing a game, but I don't think they do play games, though. This is an incredible, and India is doing a tremendous military buildup. Huge. They're doing a huge military buildup, and I believe even Russia's top fighter, top secret stuff, is being jointly done with India and Russia. So India has secrets of Russia's fighter jet program. That's undeniable. So with this alliance with the United States that we're all looking at, maybe it's unspoken, but it's obvious that we can see this. It makes you actually wonder, what is the United States getting from India as far as weapons information? And you remember that was not that long ago. It was, I think, before the special military operation. I don't know, they had this person from the Wall Street Journal, and he was spying, and they caught him, and they have it on videotape, where he was getting past secret information in the area like Ekaterinburg, the area, the Ural Mountains, where most all of the military production of Russia takes place. So they filmed it, and somebody passing him information. And I don't know if that was a setup with that person as well, if they were kind of baiting him. But this guy was with the Wall Street Journal, and obviously he was a spy for the U.S. government, and he was going to turn that over. So they put him in jail. I don't know if that guy was released. I don't think he was. I think he's still in jail in Russia, but I'm not positive. I've forgotten, because this was like over a year ago. It's incredible. And you would think that after this Iranian ship that left India, that India would have strong protests against the United States blowing up this ship and killing all those sailors, this unarmed ship. But they didn't. It's like, what? They barely even mentioned it. So, and they say they're neutral. And do you do that to a neutral country? I mean, and you heard Pete Hegseth, and he even admitted, and he was even bragging about it, that they don't play fair, that they do not want a fair fight. They take a huge advantage over whoever they're going to go after. In other words, we're bullies, and we're going to be killing people. It sounds like somebody who would even go after and bomb a school full of children. And apparently, there's already 6 elementary schools. 6 elementary schools. And they had yesterday some footage of the United States bombing a boys' elementary school. So they're doing a lot of this, and the United States does this on purpose. They know exactly what they're bombing. 6 elementary schools, hospitals, and so many other things like this. So, the bomb went off on, they used to say that in Iraq. The smart bombs weren't so smart at that time, I guess. I don't really know. So, and you might even ask yourself, well, why is India turning? Why are they turning on the BRICS? And I can tell you why they're turning on the BRICS. India, they've made it no secret that they will do what's ever in India's interests. So you look at that BRICS, and you look at 2 countries, China and India. Whether they would be good friends or not, it doesn't matter. Apparently, there is some friction there. But they are both big industrial powers. They make things on the stuff you buy on Amazon. A huge portion of that is or was coming from China. Maybe it still is. I have no idea. So a lot of the income for China is coming from the United States, from everybody buying everything. Most everything in Walmart, all that stuff is made in China. It's the same with Germany. You go to Germany, and most of this stuff, even German products, you see German names on it, but it's not necessarily always made in Germany. A lot of that is made in China. I've seen it with my own eyes when I was there, and many, many, many years ago, and it's probably only increased. But India is now a rising power. As I said, they're growing. It's a growing power. It's not anywhere near as powerful as China. That's obvious, but it's getting more and more powerful, much faster than China. It is really coming into being maybe even matching China in a few years. So they need a market for all of their products. And within the BRICS, obviously China is the dominant power, and a lot of the products that a lot of these economies need, your Walmart type products and all that, that's going to be mostly coming from China. And so India has to take second fiddle to that. So I think India is now switching alliances, I guess, mostly for these other markets. And they believe that there's going to be a split probably with the West and China, and they're going to be there to fill in all the market for all these products, everything like made in India. As a matter of fact, my coffee bags, when I was growing coffee in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the best deal that I could get, much better than China, is to buy it from India. The products I got from India were much better quality, and I could buy them in smaller quantities. In India or China, I had to buy 30,000 bags if I wanted to do a deal, and the quality is often very questionable. And I ordered a small quantity once. I had to wait a long time. I guess it was some sort of a deal because I only wanted, I don't know, a smaller amount. I can't remember how much I actually got, 3,000 bags. Quality was not so great at that time. That was how I started out. And then I found out there's a company, as a matter of fact, you can even look it up. It's called Swiss Pack, like Switzerland, Swiss Pack. And they make coffee bags, and you'll see that that is from India. And they're using like Swiss machines and things. Very high quality, the zippers, and the size is perfect. And even the company that I used, they were very good. They even made labels. So I started, because the labels, they're not quite as good as quality as the labels that I was using, I think from New Jersey. But it's a little bit worse. But they also worked with me just as well as this small company in New Jersey with the labels. And I don't know, they probably didn't have these big Xerox machines or whatever to make all these labels really nice, but it was very good, very good quality. A lot of people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they get their labels made in Trinidad. And to me, the quality just was not quite so good. And the price was not so necessarily great either, but the ones from India, and I made my labels there, and they could send them with the coffee bags, the zipper bags. It was absolutely fantastic. The company worked with me very well. And I could tell you other things, but maybe a little bit illegal. So, well, no, I'll tell you that. I was doing this also during the COVID times. And what was this? Hydrochlorox, something that was, they said was helpful against the coronavirus, some sort of tablets that a lot of people, I think that was maybe towards the beginning, and they said that I don't know, that you don't get coronavirus, and it was a very mild type of drug or whatever, and immediately they banned it in the West, in the United States. It was all banned. It was banned in St. Vincent, banned in the banned, It's not ivermectin, but I could have even gotten ivermectin. But China produces a lot of these things. So the guy in the company, he put a couple of these boxes. My wife wanted these things. So I don't know. Anyway, but so he put a few of these boxes, I don't know, maybe altogether, maybe 300 tablets. I have no idea of this this stuff, and like I said, it was before they figured out that ivermectin was actually even much better. But they put some of that in there and snuck it in there. I think they didn't even charge us. So talk about a great company. So India, I don't want to badmouth India too bad. I don't really understand what Modi is doing. So it's, I don't know. But it seems duplicitous. And like I said, even the people in India say that they are clearly siding in foreign policy with the United States. So, and against the BRICS, which is very weird. And the BRICS is an economic union, it has nothing to do with military. So, but like I told you, I've taken classes, and I was in intelligence. I worked in intelligence. And I was not any kind of a spook or anything like that, but I had to even sit in these classes and all that. And part of that was to be able to tell when like myself, when we are being manipulated and how these methods work and all that. And I can tell you right now and I'll give a warning to Modi and to India that you are being manipulated. And of course, it starts out very small. That's the way it works. That's the best way when it's going to be long term. And then it starts to get bigger. So they start out with one small thing, and then they kind of hook you with that, and then it's going to be another thing. So India better beware of that. And there's going to be ways that they hook you. In fact, that is how Jeffrey Epstein actually did things too. They made it look like some little thing, and get some young girls and they sit on your lap and stuff. And it's apparently that's how they probably got Donald Trump. And they just sit on your lap and all that. No problem there. No sex, nothing. And then, of course, it's a little more the next time and a little bit. And then they start like Epstein. And it is a known fact. Epstein showed these pictures to Donald Trump. I think there was and somebody was even on there, and they had these pictures, and I think they showed, I think they had 5 pictures, and these were Polaroid pictures, and they showed, I think, two of them, and it was on a program. I don't know what happened to that. I don't even know who the guy was, because this is all stuff that I just look at, and I it's not important to me to remember the names and all that stuff, but I saw some of these things, and there's a very young girl, very young, I don't know. She could even be 12 years old as far as I know. But she's sitting on the armchair, and we're on the chair that Donald Trump is sitting on. And of course they black out the faces and all that stuff, but it was Donald Trump, and you could see his hair, everything. And so that is probably how it all kind of started. And maybe Donald Trump, oh, yeah, but I don't know, maybe he did a little bit of something more. And there's a lot of these files coming up. And I guess a lot of that is coming out now, and a lot of people are demanding to see this, a lot of congressmen in the United States Congress. But we're all watching the Iran war, so we're not paying that much of attention. So it is actually a wag the dog. And I was talking about that before, and I was thinking it was going to go a little bit earlier. And Donald Trump actually delayed this attack on Iran. So that is part of this attack on Iran. It's just some fascinating stuff and how history repeats itself. And it's Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini. I guess his specialty was literature, even English literature, and he spoke English fluently. So he knows a lot about this stuff, and some of these things that I talk about, like Iago from Othello in the Shakespeare play, or Shylock, also in a Shakespeare play, in The Merchant of Venice. And there's a lot of things. In Charles Dickens, you have Uriah Heep, and all of these villains. And this stuff actually comes out. This actually is the way they do this stuff in real life. So these authors, they used real life. They used real life and real people they saw their villainous. You could take a character. You could just look at Benjamin Netanyahu and make yourself a book on that. And I'll bet that there are people even thinking about that right now if they haven't already done it. I mean, he's like a supervillain. I tell you what. Anyway, I don't want to get off on too many tangents here. But India, I don't know exactly what their future plans are as far as their relationship with the West and their relationship with the BRICS countries. You could say the global South. But it's like, I don't know, do they want to have their cake and eat it too? And my prediction is that Vladimir Putin and Xi from China are also going to be going along with this. They're going to say, well, that's okay. We are not a military alliance, and you can be friends with whoever you want to. Vladimir Putin has already shown some signs like that before. He did not want Ukraine to be militarily aligned with the West, because the West, obviously NATO, the entire creation, the entire existence of NATO is to be used against Russia. That is exactly what it is. It's to go to war against Russia. That is the entire purpose of NATO. So Vladimir Putin said that they're not going to accept Ukraine going into NATO. So then you have a NATO very, very hostile enemy right on your border. And they were already bombing their own people at that time, like I said, and they killed 13,000 people in East Ukraine. But, the press kept that a big secret. But everybody knows, and it's true. But Putin said it's fine if Ukraine joins the European Union. But then you have Viktor Orban says, no, we don't want that. And I can understand that. Maybe it would If you got Ukraine to join the European Union, now let's be honest, they would drain the European Union. Ukraine was draining the Soviet Union. They put so much money, billions and billions and billions, and there's so much corruption in Ukraine. And this has been going on for a long time. I heard this long time ago. I can even go back literally into the 1990s, literally. And people were telling me how corrupt Ukraine was. And they say, stay away from that place. And because I was thinking, well, maybe that's a decent place to live. I'll look into that. They said, no, you don't want to go there, And it's like a big black hole where the money just seeps into it. It flows into it. You got a lot of people getting rich, huge amounts of corruption. And I'm not saying all the Ukrainian people. I'm certainly not saying that. But that is the society, and that's how the place runs. And that's how the government runs, and everybody knows that that's what, look at Zelensky, NABU, and all of these anti-corruption offices, and there is so much. And I think was it just yesterday? No, the day before that, huge sums of money. And I think maybe Hungary knew that they were transporting this laundered money through Hungary. And so they pulled this truck, and they knew that it was, I guess, and it was a convoy. There's a convoy, get this, a convoy of trucks filled with money, filled with euros and gold that is coming from the West, and they were transporting it through Hungary to go into Ukraine, and it's all laundered money from the corruption of the government of Ukraine. It's absolutely incredible. They even have film footage of that, video film footage. You'll never see that in the West. And I can't put it on for some odd reason. I have to admit that I'm kind of a dummy. I'm a tech dummy. I spent yesterday trying to, hours yesterday trying to put some videos, and I used to be able to do it, but actually it comes from the program. You got to find the right program to put videos in, and I don't know. I admit, you got to admit if you have a fault. I mean, instead of carrying it around with you. I'm a tech idiot, I suppose, so I couldn't put that in my videos. I used to do this in the past. I have done it, and I don't know. I guess I turned into a Joe Biden. I lost my brains or something like that. So anyway, let's keep going. So I already said that they've got permission to buy Russian oil. Isn't that something? And India, they've prided themselves in saying that we are an independent country. We're an autonomous nation. And now there are people in India, some of the top experts I'm talking about, these political analysts, saying that it is now very obvious that India is not an autonomous nation. They are not an independent nation. They are subservient to the United States. Now that should be a very big shock, I mean, India acting as if, we're friends with these people, we're friends with everybody, we don't want anything. But apparently they are subservient to the United States. And even these experts are saying there are only 3 autonomous nations in the world. They said, and this is actually not accurate, they said it is the United States, Russia, and China. But that's not really even true. What about Israel? Iran is striving for autonomy. Obviously, Yemen would want to be too, but they're an extremely poor country, unfortunately. That part of the Ansar Allah side of Yemen, there's 2 sides of Yemen, of course. And Iran, they are probably the moral compass of any decent people in the world. And they're trying to, of course, make them look like they're evil people. They try to make Hamas look like they're evil, or Hezbollah look like they're evil. But these people, in truth, they probably have far higher moral standards than most of all of the rest of us. And the moral convictions, these are tremendous people. You'd say, oh, God, what a terrible thing to say. Those are terrorists. How dare you say that? And then at the same breath, I could also say probably the biggest sponsor, and it's an undeniable fact, the biggest sponsor of terrorism on planet Earth is the United States government. And then maybe even by proxy, that makes Israel the biggest sponsor of terrorism. Israel is really big into terrorism. They might even be the ones that invented terrorism. Like I talked about the Lavon affair, and how they were bombing and killing Americans in Egypt in 1967, trying to make it look like the Egyptians did it to get the United States to go to war against Egypt. And they still do the same damn stuff today. Look at, they sent a bomb, obviously, into Azerbaijan. And unfortunately, the leader of Azerbaijan, Aliyev, he's fallen for it. And Iran keeps saying, we didn't do it. Why would we do that? We didn't do, what was the purpose of that? And so he's still fallen for it. So I don't know. He might be now starting a big buildup against Iran. Maybe he wants to fall for it. Maybe he wants to increase his territory. He obviously does want to increase his territory. Remember, they just did this thing with Armenia not too long ago, and apparently Armenia lost. And part of the reason maybe why Russia did not really stick up for, they wanted peace, but they did not stick up for Armenia as much as they really should have. It's probably because Pashinyan, the leader of Armenia, he turned on Russia. He's and he's now trying to make alliances also and get Armenia even into NATO. He's making big friendships with the United States, and he wants to be a weapon against Russia. I don't know. The guy is kind of messed up. Maybe he's changed now. I don't know. Maybe the United States doesn't want that. And then, of course, there is the north-south corridor. That's between Russia and Iran, and I guess that is still going through. But, of course, the United States is trying to completely destroy Iran and decapitate it and put a different... And, of course, then that will make it to where it was just a huge waste of money for Russia to try to be establishing this rail line and all that for... Yeah, and it actually was for the betterment of Iran. But you have to go, looking at your perspective is so if your perspective is that the United States is going to be successful, yeah, then it's a waste of money. But I'll tell you another thing is it's pretty, to me it's kind of obvious. The United States, in the main part, is not going to be successful. I don't know if Donald Trump is completely lost. He's definitely, Donald Trump has big mental problems. There is no doubt about that. I mean, people could have seen that a long time ago. Just the mere fact that this guy is some kind of a megalomaniac, and he wants power. He thirsts for power. That's basically what he just wants. He wants power, and apparently he's always been that way. So that could lead you to be. I was hoping. I liked Donald Trump at the beginning, thinking, oh, well, he's going to use this and try to do good things, and like he said he was, and it turns out he's not. Basically, it's Donald Traitor. Donald J. Traitor. It's not Marjorie Traitor Green. She's not a traitor. She's kept true to everything that she said, but Donald Trump, Donald Trump is turning on everybody that has firm convictions, firm moral convictions, and he hates them. Because he doesn't have moral convictions, apparently. Donald Trump wants power. And his America first is, actually, he doesn't care if everybody hates America. And he's now building a military like you would never believe. He's trying to do this. So I'll get into that too. I'm coming to that. Well, anyway. I was a part of that part I was trying to say that probably the most autonomous nation on the planet is Israel. Israel does what it wants to do, and if they can't get what they want, they maneuver the United States through AIPAC or otherwise, or anyone even, or they use the United States to pressure other countries to get whatever they want. And they always get it free. Everything becomes free of charge for Israel, especially from the United States. Wow. So I don't know. Are they going to stay in BRICS? Are they going to leave BRICS voluntarily? I don't think they're going to get kicked out. I don't know. But everybody in the world knows that how easy it is for the United States to make promises to everybody, and then they back out. They stab everybody in the back. They don't follow any treaties. I've said that before, and I hate to keep repeating myself, but you can't trust the United States for anything like that. And many Arab nations now, they're figuring that out as well. Look at a lot of these Gulf states. Did you know that well, obviously you knew that the one reason why these bases were all there, they told these Arab states that it is for protection, like protection against Iran, I guess. But actually, it turned out that that's exactly the opposite. It made them a target of Iran. And I mean, that's obvious. That's obvious right there. And notwithstanding the fact that they probably never intended on protecting these countries anyway. It was just a little bit for show. And it's not even for show because it wasn't ever enough. And and as soon as Israel started getting attacked, the United States started taking all of these air defenses out of there and sending them all to Israel. And these Arab countries are saying, well, wait a minute, you said you would protect us too. But instead, you're sending all of our air defenses to Israel. Yeah, probably they were put there just so that they can move them to Israel if Israel ever comes under attack. So they gave themselves, it's very much like if you're looking at the Baltic states in Europe, and they're like they call them the Chihuahua states, like, I'm going to bite your pant leg if you don't get out of here. And of course, they're just to provoke Russia. And of course, their military, 3,000 people? It's laughable. It's absolutely laughable. But even as these Arab states are noticing, you would think India would notice it now. UAE. Now, it seems like there was some sort of an alliance between the United Arab Emirates, India, and the United States and Israel. So India, United Arab Emirates, USA, Israel. So there was like a quad right there. And the UAE is thinking, now there's something wrong here. You would think India would be taking note of that. I don't know. That is, of course, militarily, but it can transfer over into other things. The United States will abandon you when it doesn't suit their purposes anymore. Maybe you can even ask Zelensky about that, how that works. And the United States has done it many other times. Wow. And remember, Israel comes first. And it's not just Donald Trump. Donald Trump obviously is Israel first, big time, big time. But it was even Joe Biden. Because if you look at what was going on in the Ukraine war, remember when they started sending cluster munitions and Joe Biden, his excuse was, well, we gave you all those bombs. We don't have any more bombs. We are dangerously low and we can't send you any more bombs because we need some, just in case at some point in time, if we have to protect the United States. So we have to send you the cluster bombs. And then just months after that, as if it was planned that way, it was this September 11th, October 7th, 2023, the so-called unprovoked attack of Hamas, on those concert goers right on the border of Gaza. Oh, very nice place to put it, right? And anyway, as you all know, it was actually Israel that killed all those people. It was not Hamas. Hamas had a couple hang gliders and that was it. And even though it took the Israelis a long time, and who was it? A lot of people said that there are so many soldiers on the border that is impossible that could have ever happened the way it went down. And Israel didn't respond. And all these soldiers that went before the courts and they said they were told to stand down. The IDF told them stand down. So they stayed away and were letting things just go as the way it was. And then the Israeli military started moving in there. And they were the ones that were killing the Israelis. And there are witnesses to that. And of course, that's another thing. You get a big fine if you speak out to any reporters and tell them actually what happened. So Benjamin Netanyahu has a very tight grip on all of the information in Israel. So you are not allowed to come out and say the truth. And there's so many people that have been saying this. There are even times, I think there was somebody that worked in the office, and that was also put out, that when their daughter was going to this concert there, this lady said, don't go, don't go, don't go. She knew exactly what was happening, and she said to stay away from there. And that was also put out. This stuff it comes out normally in Haaretz, because Haaretz, they seem to be the only ones that are brave enough to report this stuff. It's absolutely incredible. But so after that happened, It's like magic. Joe Biden had so many bombs, thousands and thousands and thousands of bombs, that he didn't have for Ukraine. Isn't that really? He had to send them the cluster munitions to bomb the Russians with. You know, the ones that when they drop that are illegal, and then they spread up into like hundreds of bomblets all over the place. And if they don't go off, and if you touch them or something like that, children get blown up, and that's a whole bunch. So thousands of these bombs all over in the Donbass area, and at the same time, all of these bombs that were going to Israel, thousands and thousands, plane after plane after plane after plane. And Donald Trump, of course, kept that up to the fact that Gaza, there was more bombs dropped on Gaza in that short period of time than was dropped in all of World War II, through the entirety of World War II. That's why Gaza looks the way Gaza looks today. It's, but they ran out of bombs, yeah, except when Israel wants the bombs. Then they can find them very quickly. And it's just like what Donald Trump says, and everybody's saying, we're running out of this and that. And he says, no, we have enough for a long time. And they do. They have a lot of bombs. The United States, it doesn't take that long to make them. They have a lot of bombs, and they're quadrupling but anyway, it's a lot of these interceptors. A lot of them are very expensive, these things that are shot off probably from the HIMARS and other things like that. So some of those are expensive. And I guess Iran's theory is that they're sending in bombs and things, and they send up 2 interceptors. So a $20,000 drone, and the United States is wasting $1 million to try to shoot that drone down. The United States taxpayer, of course. Free gift to Israel. All of this stuff is absolutely free for Israel. So Israel, they're emboldened to be threatening their neighbors there and insulting them, and then when the bombs start coming in, it's just the United States that has to pay for all of that stuff. Aren't you proud, I guess? And just like what I was saying yesterday, they got the Christians believing that they're doing something very good, and it's heavenly and it's righteous, and Jesus is going to come back because there's a lot of killing going on. So yeah, Haig says, loves this killing because he's a good Christian. Doesn't make sense to me, but maybe to some Christians it does, I guess. Yeah. And it says so in the Bible. There's a lot of stuff in the Bible. That's one reason why I'm not really a big fan of everything that's in the Bible, the Old Testament or the New Testament. I'm really not, because it's how you interpret all of this stuff, and I just stay away from it, because there is good and wise things, a lot of them in the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, but there is also a tremendous amount of evil. And a lot of times, if you follow the advice, and this, I'm going to lose some subscribers now. So you follow that advice, and there goes your morality right there. A lot of things are very immoral and very evil. And if you become an evil person if you follow certain things in the Bible. The Torah, that's what, the Old Testament, that's what they call that in Israel. Do you think those are very nice people, a lot of those people? How they interpret the Torah? To go around and kill people, and to genocide and ethnic cleansing, to wipe out all these people, Amalek or whatever the heck it all is, Yeah, great people, very nice. Do you think Jesus likes that stuff? I don't think so. That's one reason I like Jesus, but a lot of this other stuff, I'm very skeptical of it. I'm even skeptical about the stuff they write about Jesus in there, because it's a known fact. God did not write the Bible. I'm sorry, Charlie Kirk, I'm sorry, but God is not the author of the Bible. It is humans that wrote the Bible, And there's a lot of stuff in there. And, you can't think, there weren't some of these Zionist type of Jewish people in those old days to make sure that some certain things are worded in certain ways, translated in a certain way. How many languages, from one language to the other, from this language to that, like Latin maybe, and then into German, and from German, and whatever. Anyway, and you ever heard of that phrase, lost in translation? Well, sometimes, use this word. Sometimes, even in ancient Greek, one word has 7 different meanings, and some of them are exactly the opposite of some of the other definitions. So you got to sit there, which word am I going to use? Anyway. What do you think, Richmond Lattimore? I mean, I don't know. Did he translate the New Testament. If you guys have ever heard of Richmond Lattimore, he's the one that did a lot of the translations. I think there was this Albert Cook or something. He's the one that translated, they say, the best version from the Odyssey. And Richmond Lattimore, I guess he translated the Iliad, and they said it was very, very, very good. So that's from ancient Greek. So I don't know if he translated from ancient Greek the New Testament. There's probably it's probably very, very accurate. I guess he was a very gifted translator. But a lot of the stuff was missing in the New Testament, so they ad-libbed, and they put a lot of things, entire paragraphs and things that didn't even exist, and they added it into the New Testament. And that is a fact. They're some of the best Bible scholars that has ever lived have come out and admitted that. So sorry about that. I'm sorry to be saying that still, because I like people with high moral standards, and there are a lot of Christians that are like that. But you don't want to be buffaloed either. I mean, when you get yourself on the wrong path, what was the point? What was the point in all of that? So try to find out things in the Old and the New Testament that you know absolutely are true. And some of the other things you have to always be skeptical and say it could be and maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm just saying that. So if you want to drop me and unsubscribe, I guess some of you are going to do that. But the rest of you, subscribe right now and put a like. Make sure you put a like too. That's important for YouTube. Otherwise, they're not gonna put my videos into feeds anyway. That's why I always get the same amount of views every time. And I've seen, like I told you, I've seen views go down. That you're sitting there watching and you have like 72 views, and then it goes down to 68. I say, what? Some people just unsaw my video. It's absolutely incredible. I don't know. Anyway. Okay. So yes, that's what I was talking about as far as the United States and their weapons manufacturers. And I think Donald Trump, yeah, he put this out in a tweet. That's where I was reading a lot of this stuff. He's ordered weapons makers to quadruple production. And he says, you see, I'll quote this, "We want to reach as rapidly as possible." Wait a minute, I thought Iran was going to be finished in 4 days. Oh no, then it was 4 weeks. Oh no, now it's, But anyway, "we want to reach as rapidly as possible the highest levels of quantity." Expansion began 3 months prior to the meeting when he met with a lot of these people. And he met with all of them, all of the biggest weapons corporation. This is the entire military industrial complex. So among them, and I'll just name some. There was actually some more, BAE Systems and whatever these things are. And then there's Northrop Grumman was there, Boeing, Honeywell, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and more and more and more. There was a lot of these people there. And of course, maybe some people couldn't get there, so Donald Trump sent the memo to them as well. And the military industrial complex is far bigger than that. You have to look back at it was actually a speech by General Smedley Butler back in 1935 called, anyway, they titled that section of it, "War is a Racket." And that's where, this is 1935, by the way. So he was talking about basically the military industrial complex and how this is all going. And the United States, he was admitting the United States is a militaristic country. And it was back then. He called himself a prostitute for the corporations, American corporations, as he was a general. I think he's the highest decorated soldier in U.S. history. And the Bush family back in those days were trying to get him to assassinate President Roosevelt. So that kind of makes it so you don't hear about his name anymore. You've never heard Smedley Butler, the biggest war hero in U.S. history? Strange, I never heard that name. Yeah. You know why? Because he was probably a loyal American. He died at, I think, the age of 50. Very young age. Very strange. And they were commissioning him to assassinate President Roosevelt for some odd reason. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't ready to drop the nuclear bomb. Or then, of course, they got rid of him and they had to get Harry Truman to get in there. Presidents are coerced as well, just like Donald Trump somehow. They got the goods on Donald Trump, I'm sure. And there's lots of information now, I guess, coming out, even more coming out. Wag the dog, like I said, about young girls. And apparently, I think there's a video. I think it's a video. I never saw this video. I don't know if it was videotaped just for the court systems or not. I don't know if it's public, but anyway, one of these girls that was threatened by Donald Trump. And so how that happened, apparently how it was, and I think what it said in the video, is that Donald Trump was with her, and Epstein was there and all that sort of stuff. So the other people left the room, and what she said is Donald Trump told her, "I'll show you how to behave as a young girl." And I guess he took her head and he forced it down. He was naked and onto, his private area down there. And apparently, she didn't really like that way. So she bit his Johnson, and Donald Trump, I think, slapped her around a lot. And then after that, she almost was killed. I guess cars were running her off the road. So she got in car accidents. And there was some other things like that. But apparently she's still alive. And but anyway, that's what happened afterwards. And I don't know. You can add that to the Epstein files. But of course, don't tell anybody. So you didn't hear that from me, did you? Wow. So anyway, the United States is, this is supposed to be easy. But I tell you what, the very fact that Donald Trump told these companies to quadruple all of their weapons production. You heard Donald Trump saying he's going to build battleships again, the biggest and the most powerful, with rail guns and all, like laser things, and some of these modern weapons that the United States does not even field yet, even though they do have the technology and they do have prototypes of these weapons. They're going to put those on those battleships, and there's like undefendable weapons a lot. They fire something on there and you're toast because you can't do anything about that. They're putting it on these battleships. It's very much on the line of the Orishnik that Russia is using on some occasions, this new type of kinetic energy weapons. In the United States, that's what these rail guns are all about on these ships. It's a kinetic energy, and it's very devastating. And but anyway, they're going to be building these ships. They're not going to be finished, at least in Donald Trump's term, obviously. But I think Donald Trump, he intends on going another third term. I mean, his mind is already lost. I tell you, Biden, he was messed up, and Trump is also messed up. But I think I would rather have Biden's messed up right now, his incompetence, than Donald Trump's messed up incompetence. Otherwise, you can... Sorry, Donald Trump, but you have low IQ. Donald Trump definitely is a very low IQ person. There is no doubt about that. Donald Trump is very good in making money and exercising power. Seizing power, taking power, making money. Period. Everything else, Donald Trump is low IQ. He doesn't know what he's doing. He can't organize things. Maybe he could organize a company, but Donald Trump always had power, and if something ever went wrong, he would just smash it with his hammer and smash that square peg into the round hole. And you can do a lot of things. I've seen that in companies. I saw a big company in the Caribbean, and that's how they did. They were incompetent, didn't know how to do stuff, so that they had a lot of power. They had billionaires behind them, the general manager at that time. So she would just basically pound that square peg into and then one time it looks like she was smuggling drugs from from South America, and it was coming into her warehouse. And there was a guy, and I knew the guy too. I wasn't friends with him. I knew him though. But anyway, he found these drugs, he was in charge of the big warehouse. And so he reported it to her, and he got fired. I said, what? He found drugs getting smuggled through your company, so you fire him. He reported it personally to her, and everybody knew that. And there's a lot more than that. That is the same company I was telling you about that used, that she's a Jewish lady from Italy, from northern Italy, and her father was a big mafia boss in Italy. And she used Israelis, because a lot of, even the locals, they hated her because, like the Poltergeist movie, remember? Where she wanted to build this big, huge billion-dollar resort that was going on there at that time, and Donald Trump, of course, is involved in this as well. This is some very interesting stuff, I guess, for you guys to hear this. But anyway, there was a graveyard there, and anyway, she took over I think 1/3 of the entire island of Canouan, and she moved the graveyard to some other place. I guess I guess she either dug up all the graves or she paved over it or whatever. I wasn't there at that time. I came after that. But anyway, so the local people hated her for some things like that. Not to mention the arrogance. And, I'd even been to her house and even talked with her a few times. And right next door was the Villa of Ferrari, the ones that make the cars. And a lot of these rich people. And they say that island and those resorts that she is building on that, where Donald Trump golf course, Donald Trump casino was at, and all that, they say that those resorts on Canouan Island in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that's where, and you can look it up, that's where billionaires go to get away from millionaires. I guess this is what they used to say about that sort of thing. But anyway, there's so much of this corruption and stuff going on in the world. And also, you can also imagine, there's another island not too far away from there, the island of Mystique. And that's even been in movies, Pierce Brosnan playing the Prime Minister of England there, and he's at that thing, and that's the royal family. And there's like a big thing of big sex parties. It was Princess Margaret's house. And as a matter of fact, I know the people that bought the house. I've talked about them before here in this video as well. But anyway, but big sex parties, and it's like Princess Margaret get a bunch of black guys. 96% of the population there are black people. So she would go there for sex parties and, a lot of black guys and her, having escapades in that house and all that sort of thing. So, boy, I don't know if this video is going to make it onto YouTube talking about this stuff and exposing some of these secrets. But yeah, you guys got to subscribe. Send this to your friends and all that. So, and you get to hear about these things. Hey, I'm kind of safe in Belarus, so I don't know if anybody's going to send some hitmen and, eliminate me. Anyway, I'm almost done with the video, by the way. So anyway, the United States is expanding the military-industrial complex big time. I wonder, is that for Iran? It's actually not for Iran. Donald Trump is going to use this to have his way anywhere. And if he doesn't get Greenland beforehand, so if any of this stuff is going to come online while he's still president, that's going to be used, obviously, so that he can get Greenland, that he can take it over. Do you think the European Union, even with their big buildup, and the whole buildup of the European Union and the United States is going to be firstly to go after Russia. Russia is just on the back burner. Listen to the videos from Brian Berletic on the New Atlas, and he is screaming over and over again. He's telling you, because he's reading all of these Rand Corporation and all of these think tanks from America, what their intentions are going to be. And he's very schooled up on this stuff. So Russia is on the back burner for now, and probably China is going to come after that. You never know. Maybe they're going to start off with China before Russia. Maybe they realize Russia's not a bunch of dummies, and Russia has a lot of power, and they have a lot of nuclear weapons and all that. You can't. Makes me wonder. Well, why don't they just seem to realize that if these countries are threatened, they're going to use their nuclear weapons? So what are they still? I don't know. They're still going to try to. Well, you see how Donald Trump is doing it. He's taken away all of the customers of Russia. So he's trying to make Russia poor again. That's what he's doing, because he doesn't want to attack, because of the fact that they have nuclear weapons. So he's just trying to, really weaken Russia. That's going to be the big goal at that time, as well as China. And when I don't know. Brian Berletic, he might know exactly what the big plan is in the world, but maybe you guys can all use some creative thinking. I mean, that's what the whole deal is about my channel and a lot of other people's channel, is to do some thinking for yourself, and don't have Donald Trump or any of these other, or Lindsey Graham do your thinking for you. They're going to make sure that it surprised us that this happened because we didn't suspect that. Anyway, so they're having a huge military buildup. And that's going to be used at some time. It's nothing else to threaten. And Donald Trump, I think they said, a lot of people are saying this weekend, starting maybe even today, they're going to be doing the takeover of Cuba. So who knows? Matter of fact, I did forget something. I'm going to talk about a few other little things at the beginning of on my writings here. So, yeah, but yeah, I don't know. They might just be with Iran. They're going to probably relegate themselves because I don't. Donald Trump's saying he wants to decide the leader and all this sort of stuff. And of course, that's a big insult, obviously, to Iran and stuff. But I think they're just going to keep making them weaker and weaker and weaker. I don't know, but I think Iran maybe knew that. So they're held out for the long time. The country is going to be very weak after all of this. There is no doubt they're going to have to spend decades to rebuild their economy and everything else. But I think they put a lot of this into this missile defense, which was very wise, very smart. They're not a bunch of dummies in Iran, so and I wish them all the luck. Definitely, I don't want to see anybody killed. I think even Jimmy Dore said that same thing in a video I saw this morning. Not even Americans, especially not Americans. And I'm from the United States, and I know a lot of these people don't want to necessarily be there. They wanted a job. The economy gets bad. Rather than living in a tent. Hey, when I got out of the military, I was basically homeless too. I bought a pickup truck with a little canopy thing in the back, and I lived under that canopy for at least half a year, and actually, and I was still even homeless for a time after that too. But that's anyway. I know what it's like getting out of the military as well. So but I'd love to see these aircraft carriers get blown to bits, if that's possible, without killing anybody. Anyway, I'm on Iran's side. I'll make no quips about that. I'm not there for some megalomaniac, going around and killing and destroying the entire world for, their own ego. Okay, so you all probably noticed that the Pentagon, this is just a start. They want a supplementary bill of $50 billion, and that's just for the ammunition that they're running out of. And I tell you what, it takes time to make this ammunition. So they're quadrupling, as we see, the production. So obviously they're running out of these interceptors. That's mostly what it's all about, and missiles. But it's going to be a lot more than that. But I think this is just a start. This is a first supplementary budget, or what do they call that? A supplementary bill or something to increase the old one, which was already really huge. It was over $1 trillion. So another $50 billion on top of that. So the biggest military budget yet, and then another $50 billion. So wow. And he's trying to save money. Yeah. Boy. And that's just for this war on Iran. But I don't know. What's going to come after Iran and Cuba? I don't know. Sergei Lavrov said that don't just think that that's going to be the end of it. He said that over a week ago. So the Zio Christians are playing a big part in this bill, this thing. So you guys have to. He wants them all to get out there and say, "Oh, this is for Jesus and for God to be taking over the world." So because that's Jesus would do that, wouldn't he? Jeez. Yeah. And most of these ammunition things, most of them are going to go free of charge to Israel. So it's $50 billion for right there, and it's probably, I would say, at least $30 billion of that goes free to Israel. So when you hear about this $3.8 billion guaranteed that always goes to Israel, and it has for many decades, probably for 30 years, but it's always been much more than that. It's always been around $10 billion, and there's a lot more money that goes besides that. And I don't think that even counts all of these weapons and this ammunition and stuff that goes there. A lot of sneaky money. I don't know. Some people say that Israel gets a lot more than that. And then I think on the Young Turks, they say, 300 billion they've sent to Israel. It's probably a lot higher than that. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, you got to send this stuff to kill children. And I saw somebody saying, and apparently I guess you can look in the Jerusalem Post. I've said this. I said this before, and I said I think I saw this way back in 1984, the year, the George Orwell year. But somebody said they saw in the Jerusalem Post in 1986 of they were saying that Iran is like 2 weeks or 2 months away from having a nuclear bomb. So this is going way back into the 80s. So they've been harping on this for a long, long time. And who knows, maybe it's like they're trying to provoke Iran into making a nuclear weapon, because everybody is saying, how in the heck are you ever going to get these people to stop threatening you unless you do have a nuclear bomb? Look at what happened to North Korea. Oh, now everybody leaves them alone because they've got nuclear weapons. So incredible. I don't know. I think maybe they got rid of the Ayatollah, who was definitely against it. So who's going to be next? What are they going to decide? Do you think it's like they want to get rid of Putin, who's a moderate. And then who's going to be there next? Medvedev, who's a hawk. So it's going to be even worse. Apparently these people want this kind of stuff. It's sort of like they try to incentivize people to do things that are anti-Semitic, and they want people to be anti-Semitic because they use that to get what they want. It's absolutely incredible. What a plot. Can you imagine that that's exactly what they do? It's unbelievable. It's even like there's this young girl, I remember that, and she reported that somebody is putting, like, she's Jewish, upset, and they were like making swastikas on her locker or whatever. So she had some of these reports and whatever this, and she's getting threatened maybe or something like that. So then the school decided they put a camera up, in that hallway. So they put a camera up, and lo and behold, they saw her early in the morning spray painting a swastika on her own locker. Oh, that's happened more than one time. That's happened many times. It's absolutely incredible. That's what it's all about. And individual peoples even know this, but the state of Israel does that same thing. It's just like Bondi Beach. And everybody knows that they're tied into doing that attack in Australia. And it's to get more settlers. They need many people because they're taking over all these lands. They need settlers. How would they expect to hold this land? They don't have that big of a military. They're going to leave activate all their reserves, to hold that. Militaries don't really make money, they cost money. So what are they're going to need something, unless it's, of course, Israel, of course, they get the free money from the United States, and they want even more now. And they're going to be making a lot of more money now because they're going to be selling oil and natural gas. Some of it has been stealing from the waters of Gaza, of course, that belong to Gaza. But boy, you can't make this stuff up. Anyway, enough said about that. So the U.S. has probably realized they've underestimated Iran. So they're trying to get, as you know, and I've mentioned it, and others are mentioning, they're trying to get the Kurds, the Kurdish people, to go to war, to be their boots on the ground. So there was this fake news. I think a lot of it was put out by Israel at first, saying the Kurds have attacked Iran, but that was all fake news. And it's like, when you find out, it's like, first I was kind of believing it. Oh, that makes sense. That could be happening. But then the Kurds said, well, we didn't do that. Why would we want to do that? We're not suicidal, I guess. But Donald Trump has been approaching them and has been promising them, apparently, through a lot of things, trying to get them to be the boots on the ground. Because a lot of people have this theory in the United States that it is not a war unless there's boots on the ground. When the boots go on the ground, then it's a war. But you can bomb countries to smithereens. You can bomb and bomb from here for years, but it's not a war. It's not a war until you put boots on the ground. But actually, when you look at that, you got to compare that even to Russia. Russia doesn't say that they're in a war with Ukraine. They call it a special military operation, but they have boots on the ground. There's no doubt about that. So nobody ever declares war anymore. That's what I said. It doesn't happen. Nobody declares war. I don't think any country has ever declared a war since World War II. So because I think a lot of other, through United Nations, if you go by the rule of law, which of course the United States doesn't, but maybe other countries will. And I think if you declare war on somebody, I guess there's all sorts of negative things that happen to you. So nobody will do it anyway, based on that. Probably some Geneva Convention stuff, I don't know. So, but anyway, so the United States is looking for an army, and Ukraine is already, Ukraine would definitely do that, but they're tied up because Zelensky doesn't care about how many his own people he kills and sends to meat grinders everywhere. He just loves to see them dead. He's actually there. He's part of the project. And the whole project, obviously, is to eliminate Slavic peoples. How many times have you have to hear that? Yeah, who is it? Kaya Kallas, she said that. She even said it. You see it in video, and it's like, I don't trust my eyes or my ears, And she says, we have to kill more Russian children. She came out and she said that, Kaya Kallas. And you saw Lindsey Graham. Oh, the best thing is you're killing Russians. But of course, they want to kill Ukrainians. To them in the West, and you know that. You know that as well as I do. Ukrainians and Russians are the same thing. They're the same. Belarusians, the same thing. They're all the Eastern Slavs, and a lot of those people in America, the congressmen and all that, the elites, they want to kill all of them. They'd rather see all of them. And it's like, well, why? Why do they want that to happen? I'll talk about another. This guy, I don't think he's a billionaire, but he's a big multimillionaire. He wants everybody to think he's a big billionaire. But he was saying that oh, I hate the Russians. He told me this, and he says, oh, but the Belarusians they're different. They're okay. So and I tell you what, these people that are with a lot of big money, and he as well. He's very arrogant. Most of these people are very arrogant. And they want everybody to think that they're smarter, that they're better, and they're smarter than those of us who don't have all that money. No, they have all that money because they're bigger, they're better, and they're smarter than we are. So whatever they say makes more sense and is much more intelligent than what anybody else ever says. That's what they believe. How many rich people have I known that actually think that way? And I know for a fact that they think that way. I told you there's a guy here. He's from an English-speaking country, and he's living in Minsk. And he thinks the same way. He thinks he's smarter than everybody else because he makes, I don't know, $80,000 a month, And he's a multimillionaire. There's no doubt about that. And I've talked about him before. Some of you even know who I'm talking about. But yeah, they're smarter than us. It's like they never really thought. I was never out to try to become a big multimillionaire or billionaire. I want to have security. That's how I feel. I want to have security. I don't want to be a poor guy begging on the street. I don't need to go on these rich vacations and lay on the beach or some crap like that. That's not. There's a lot of things I like much better than that. But anyway, they think that everybody wants that, and if you are not attaining that with lots of money, then you must be a stupid person. That's their way of thinking. And they think, oh well, everybody wants to, to get all this money, and they should do anything to do that. Shaft their own friends, cheat, lie, steal, do anything, and just to get this money, because that's the big goal in life, is to get rich and get lots of money, I guess. So anyway, yeah. But anyway, the Kurds are not part of that. And that's mostly all I want to say today, everybody. There's a lot more different types of news, and it's like kind of cherry picking, and I didn't even look at some of the stuff that might have happened last night. Maybe there was a big attack, and I just haven't seen it yet. So this is already a long enough video. I don't know if I'm going to do another one. Probably not. If I do, maybe I'll be outside somewhere, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. Anyway, everybody, thanks very much for joining me, and I hope it was all informative for everybody. And take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.